Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to learn about defining and non-defining relative clauses. In the last video we have studied about clauses. Clauses are the group of words which have got subject and predicate. We have learnt about 4 types of clauses: independent clause, dependent clause, noun clause and relative clause. We have studied very clearly in simple, compound and complex sentences about dependent clause and independent clause. Now we shall learn about relative clause. Relative clause is another term for an adjective clause. Relative or adjective clauses are dependent clauses that modify nouns or pronouns. They include a subject and a verb or verb phrase and are introduced by words known as relative pronouns and relative adverbs. Relative clauses begin with a relative pronoun like whom, who, whose, which, why, where or when. If we observe this sentence, we find 2 clauses in this. My cat likes breadcrumbs is independent clause. It is a black cat, it is called dependent clause. If we join them with a relative pronoun, then the sentence appears, my cat who likes breadcrumbs is a black cat. Here my cat becomes main clause and who likes breadcrumbs is a black cat becomes a subordinate clause. Subordinate clause means the dependent clause which has got the subject and object. It is also can begin with a conjunction or a relative pronoun. So here the relative pronoun who is connecting the main clause and the subordinate clause. So who becomes a relative pronoun. As relative pronoun is joining the sentence, who likes breadcrumbs is a black cat, it is called as relative clause. Let us understand some more examples of relative clauses. The university is in Chicago. My sister goes to school. Here the university is in Chicago, it is a dependent clause. My sister goes to school is a independent clause. If we join these 2 sentences with the help of where, the university where my sister goes to school is in Chicago. Where it stands as relative adverb. As it is joining both the sentences, then it is where my sister goes to school becomes relative clause. If we observe the second sentence, I am buying a gift for the neighbor. It is a independent clause. He helped me more. It is a dependent clause. If we join both these 2 clauses with the help of who, then it becomes I am buying a gift for the neighbor who helped me more. Here who becomes relative pronoun and who helped me more becomes relative clause. We use relative pronouns to form relative clauses. Sometimes relative adverbs also will be used. They are like who, which, that, when, where, whose, etc. Who or that, they are used to refer a person or sometimes the pet animals. Like she is the woman who cuts my hair. Here who is speaking about the woman who cuts my hair. He is the man that I met at the conference. Here that can also be used for referring a person. Which or that. We can use this which or that to speak about the things. Like there was 1 year guarantee which came with the TV. Here which is speaking about the guarantee card. The laptop that I bought last week has started making a strange noise. That is speaking about the laptop here. In these 2 sentences, guarantee card and laptop are the things what we are speaking about. So we can understand relative pronouns join an independent clause and a dependent clause, or one that cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. So The most common relative pronouns include that, which, who, whoever, whom, whose, whomever. Whose refers to the person that something belongs to. He is a musician whose albums have sold millions. So here whose is referring to the person who is a musician. That is also used after the words like something, anything, everything, nothing, all, or a superlative. It can be omitted when it is not a subject. Let us observe some examples. There is something that you should know. Here already you is in the subject form, so there is no use of that. We can omit it. So there is something you should know. It was the best film that I have ever seen. I is already in the subject's place, so that can be omitted here. It was the best film I have ever seen. Do you have anything that will help my throat? Here subject is not present, so that is playing the role of a subject, so it is not omitted, it can't be omitted. Everything that you say seems silly to me. So here you is the subject already, so that can be omitted from here. So everything you say seems silly to me. Usage of relative adverbs. Relative adverbs like where, when, and why can be used to join sentences or clauses. When refers to a time. It allows us to understand the time in which an action took place. For example, that's the year when we received award from the president. Here when denotes the time of the year when the award was received. Where refers to a place. It allows us to understand the location of the subject of the sentence in a less formal manner. For example, I visited the neighborhood where I grew up. So it denotes the place where I visited. Why is used to give a reason. It provides more reason for something taking place. For example, do you know the reason why the stores are closed today? I have no idea why he called. So here why is used for asking a reason. Relative pronouns used as subjects and objects. Let us see how relative pronoun is used as a subject. I like the person. It is an independent clause. The person was nice to me. It is a dependent clause. If we join these independent and dependent clauses with a relative pronoun, then it looks like I like the person who was nice to me. Here who is standing in the position of a subject. The person. Was nice, it becomes verb, and me becomes object. Thus who relative pronoun is standing in the position of subject. Let us observe relative pronoun as object. I like the bike. It is an independent clause. My father gave me the bike. It is a dependent clause. So when we join these two sentences with the help of relative pronoun that, then it looks like I like the bike that my father gave me. Here that is standing in the position of object in the sentence. It states about the bike, which is in the object position. My father becomes a subject and gave becomes the verb. So thus we can find relative pronouns sometimes standing in the position of subject and in the position of objects. Relative clause comes after subject or object. Let us see the example here. The people live on the island. It is an independent clause. They are all very friendly. It is a dependent clause. So when we join these two clauses, the people who live on the island are very friendly. We can also say the people that live on the island are very friendly. Here who are that are the relative pronouns. So here who is stating about the people, so it is the subject. And live is the verb, on the island is object. So who live on the island and are very friendly becomes relative clause. Let us observe these two examples which are stating that relative clause comes after the object. Here I am looking for a secretary who can use a computer well. Here in the place of who we can use that also. So secretary is an object. So this who is speaking about the secretary. Who are that is a relative pronoun in the sentence. And so who can use a computer well becomes a relative clause. If you observe the second sentence, I sent a letter which or that arrived 3 weeks later. In the place of which we can use that also here. Which or that are called relative pronouns. So I sent a letter. Letter is an object. So here letter is followed by relative pronoun which also comes as the object. Which arrived 3 weeks later, it forms a relative clause. So relative clause as it is followed after an object, we can say relative pronoun, relative clause also. There are two types of relative clauses, restrictive and non-restrictive. Restrictive clause is also called as defining relative clause. Non-restrictive is called as non-defining relative clause. First we shall learn about defining relative clause. Defining relative clause will state essential information about what we are speaking. Second, it is not separated by a hyphen or a comma. Third, if they are removed from the sentence, that sentence doesn't have a significant meaning. Let us observe the examples given here. The umbrella that I bought last week is already broken. The umbrella that I bought last week, that is a relative pronoun. It states about umbrella. I bought last week, it forms the relative clause. If we remove this relative clause, the umbrella is already broken, doesn't make a significant meaning. If we observe the next example, the man who stole my backpack has been arrested. Here who is the relative pronoun and who stole my backpack is a relative clause. If we remove this relative clause, the man has been arrested. It doesn't give complete meaning. Second is non-defining relative clause. Non-defining relative clause gives us extra information about the person or thing we are speaking about. If it is removed from the sentence will not lose its significance. Non-defining relative clause can be separated from the remaining sentence with a comma or a hyphen. Let us observe some examples given here. My brother who lives in California is an engineer. Who is the relative pronoun? It is saying about the brother. Who lives in California is a relative clause and it is giving extra information about the brother. If we remove this relative clause from the sentence is not losing its significance. So it states my brother is an engineer. So this is a non-defining relative clause. So both the sentences who lives in California is an engineer, both are separated by a comma. The farmer whose name was Fred sold us 10 pounds of potatoes. Whose is a relative pronoun? It is saying about the farmer. It is giving additional information about the farmer like its name and selling of 10 pounds of potatoes. So here the farmer whose name was Fred. Whose name was Fred is a relative clause. If this is removed from the sentence, the remaining sentence gives its meaning. The farmer sold us 10 pounds of potatoes. Thus, non-defining relative clauses will make the sense if relative clause is removed from it and subject is separated with a comma or a hyphen. Here are some more examples of defining clauses. Children who hate chocolates are unknown. Here who hate chocolates is a relative clause. Who is relative pronoun. They live in a house whose roof is full of holes. Who whose is the relative pronoun and roof is full of holes relative clause. An elephant is an animal that lives in hot countries. That is relative pronoun and lives in hot countries is a relative clause. Students who study hard will do well in my class. So here who study hard. Here who is a relative pronoun and study hard is a relative clause. This is speaking about only one group of students. Students whose grades are low can drop one test score. Here whose is stating about the students. It is a relative pronoun. Grades are low. It is a relative clause. So here also whose is speaking about a group of children. Let us observe some more examples of non-defining relative clause. The heavy rain, which was unusual for the time of the year, destroyed most of the plants in my garden. Which is the relative pronoun stating about heavy rain? Which was unusual for the time of the year is a relative clause. If this relative clause is removed from the sentence, the remaining sentence will give significant meaning. The heavy rain destroyed most of the plants in my garden. Thus, heavy rain is separated with the remaining sentence by a comma. Einstein, who was born in Germany, is famous for his theory of relativity. Who is the relative pronoun stating about Einstein? And who was born in Germany is a relative clause. If this relative clause is removed, the remaining sentence will give its meaning. Einstein is famous for his theory of relativity. Thus it is separated. Einstein is separated with comma. The boy whose parents both work as teachers at the school started a fire in the classroom. Whose is relative pronoun? It is referring the boy whose parents both work as teachers at school is a relative clause. If this relative clause is removed, the remaining sentence will give its meaning. The boy started a fire in the classroom. So it is the additional information which is given about a boy. In the summer, I am going to visit Italy, where my brother lives. Here, where is the relative adverb? It is stating about the place. So here where my brother lives is a relative clause. If we remove this relative clause, the remaining sentence has its meaning. In the summer, I am going to visit Italy. I am planning to grow roses that I find quite beautiful. That is a relative pronoun. It is stating about the plan. So here that I find quite beautiful is a relative clause. If it is removed, remaining sentence has its meaning. I am planning to grow roses. Here we have to note one point, that relative pronoun that cannot be used to introduce an extra information about a person. Here you have got activity 1 and 2. Read the sentences and identify whether they are defining relative clauses or non-defining relative clauses. Read the sentences carefully and try to find out defining and non-defining relative clauses with their relative pronouns or relative adverbs. There are many such videos where you can easily understand the grammar bits. Do like, share and subscribe my channel and leave your comment in the comment box. To know about more videos related to English and biology, you can subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon so that you can get the notifications and you can learn more grammar. Thank you.